Hey guys, Andrew Henderson, nomadcapitalist.com here in Tbilisi, Georgia. Had an interesting question come up from a gentleman that I'm working with, an entrepreneur who I am helping out with their taxes and their passport, and we met up in person. And he was telling me how he likes the YouTube channel here and how he noted that I was in South Africa and Egypt recently, asked if Africa was going to be a bigger focus for me, and if so, what I had my eyes on. Interesting question. It's something that I have followed to a certain degree over the years. Africa is. I'm not necessarily the #1 expert in Africa for one simple reason. Most of you watching are people like myself who want to reduce your taxes. You want to set up a company somewhere safe. You want a bank somewhere safe. You want to go and live somewhere that if you have kids, it's safe and it's nice. If you're single, maybe you want good-looking guys or girls. And then once all that's in place, once you've reduced the taxes, once you've got the passport cranking, then you go out and look at where can I invest. And obviously here at Nomad Capitals, we talk about emerging markets such as the Balkans here in Georgia. We talk about frontier markets like Cambodia, one of my fan favorites. I'm going to new places like Mongolia. But when it comes to Africa, it's not something I spend a ton of time on because it's not something that a lot of people are interested in. I mean, when you can go and earn 10% in an emerging world bank, why are you necessarily going to Africa? Because there are some different risks there. But from more of a macroeconomic standpoint, there are a few countries that I have my eye on that are worth keeping your eyes peeled for. I don't know that you can necessarily get involved right now. These are African markets that are likely somewhat similar to Myanmar in Asia, where if you're Coca-Cola or if you're Nike, then you should be really looking at them. If you are you or I, the average entrepreneur and investor, they're probably not quite ready for you yet. But here's a couple of them I'm looking at. One of the most interesting ones that I never thought I'd be looking at is the Gambia in Western Africa. They had a pretty crazy president there for a long time, had an election. The former president was no longer able to keep himself in power through the election process, refused to leave, and then finally left and is now out of the country. There's a new guy in power who seems a lot more promising. We'll see what happens. Certainly anything there is an improvement over what it was, but the Gambia is a place that does have an offshore financial center. People don't realize that, but you can set up an offshore company in the Gambia. Don't recommend it. I'm sure there's some blogger who's paid to recommend the Gambia, but the Gambia is a place that has shown very small signs of having some potential. Now it's showing much bigger signs. It's definitely one that I'm keeping my eye out for because it's a small country and I love small countries. Another very small country that I think has shown some interesting signs, despite some of its challenges, is Djibouti in the other side of Africa, Eastern Africa. It is kind of the shining spot of the region. It's surrounded by sanctioned countries and Eritrea, which is like the North Korea of Africa, and Somalia, for example. So in a sense, it's kind of like Georgia. It's the real standout in the region. But a lot of folks have been going to Djibouti in recent years. People have been going there and making investments. I've been looking into getting down there at some point and building my contacts, building my network. Again, I think it's a little bit early for all but frontier market entrepreneurs who want to go and camp out there, but definitely shows a lot of promise. The third economy I think is really interesting in Africa is Botswana. I've said this from the very beginning of Nomad Capitalist, one of the best managed economies in Africa, not necessarily the most open to foreigners. Comparatively so to many other African countries, it is, but not Singapore by any means. That said, very well fiscally managed country as far as Africa is concerned. One that is certainly very resource dependent, so if that's not your business, you have to look at what the consumer plays are, but I continue to look at Botswana as one of the safe havens in Africa to the extent that there aren't that many of them. The last one I'm also keeping my eye on, and I built a few contacts there from being in South Africa, is Zambia. Zambia is a place that people who, some of the farmers in Zimbabwe who had their land taken from them were invited to go to Zambia, were given land, were invited to help the farmers. Everything that I've seen and heard about Zambia is a place that people are pretty welcome to go. They respect talent, they respect capital and people who know what they're doing. Again, kind of like Georgia. So Zambia is one that I'm keeping my eye on. South Africa is a place I'm keeping my eye on as a living base, as a place for digital nomads. When the internet gets in gear and when there are more reasonably priced living options, i.e. not an $800 a night hotel in Cape Town, I think it'll be a fantastic place because South Africa is beautiful. Mixed opinions on South Africa. Some South Africans say it is falling apart. Others say people are exaggerating. I think you could probably say that in any country. But it does have its share of problems, so I'm not recommending you go and invest or park your cash in South Africa. But it could become a very beautiful digital nomad hub if they get the infrastructure improved just a little bit. But in terms of investment, 4 countries I do have my eye on. Ghana would be a runner-up in that category, certainly more developed. But those 4 countries, if you're interested in frontier markets, ones to keep an eye on. Not necessarily a lot you can do with that right now, but if you've ever wondered, Andrew, are you looking at Africa? That's what I'm following on my alerts. If you want to find out more about investing around the world, see what I'm doing, see the countries I'm putting my money in, you can subscribe to our channel here, and of course lots more at nomadcapitalist.com as well.